Hello, hello, everybody. How are we doing out there? Welcome, welcome. We will get started in just a moment. My good friend Chanie Wilschanski is here as our special guest. And Chanie, you and I kind of have like a brother-sister relationship.
Totally.
Because I treat you like a sister. I try to embarrass you.
Yes.
I try to say inappropriate stuff when we're on calls.
Totally.
And funny that our relationship is that way because my brother, Josh, who's a special friend to everybody in our company, he's my closest friend. He watches our webinars and he's like, "You need to stop giving her a hard time." He told me that.
I love it. Don't ever stop.
Yeah. I said she's good with it. She's tough.
I love that.
All right, so let's get started. For those of you that don't know, my name's Scott Wayman. I'm the founder and CEO here at Kangarootime. We want to thank you for joining us first and foremost. So Kangarootime, what many of you might not know, we're a software company, and we build software to help centers optimize their businesses. So we have three components. We have a parent engagement platform that parents love. Hundreds of thousands of families are on it every day. We have a classroom automation platform to help your teachers build out rich multimedia daily reports, so to connect those families and hardwire them into the child's experience that you're fighting so hard to provide quality for. And then what we're famous for is our CCMS, our childcare management system. It's the best in class childcare management system. We're really starting to bring on customers with bunches of centers. So we do it so well at scale. We're kind of known as the real serious childcare management system. So that's us. When COVID-19, when the pandemic started, we did a lot of this. We found our stride in connecting with customers, and we were able to connect with many of the thought leaders like Chanie and bring them on. And it's just been a great modality for us to connect with you all out there. And I can't tell you the number of hugs that I get at conferences and trade shows and the thank yous. I love them. I love the hugs, and they're so validating. But really, all the credit goes to Marissa and our team that set up all this framework for doing this. So we are so pleased and privileged to have you here. Little bit of housekeeping. You're going to get certificates when the webinar's over. You'll get them the day after, so you get them tomorrow. Don't email us. We'll send them to you. And then any questions that you have, as Chanie is twisting and tweaking and presenting, she is going to put questions in the QA button on Zoom. So put them there. And if we can answer them in the background, Marissa and I will be helping with that. Your microphones and cameras are not on. We can't see you. We can't hear you. And the recording, we will send this out tomorrow with our follow-up email. Real quick, for those of you who have not joined our blog, please go to kangarootime.com and join subscribe to our blog. Marissa and team are putting great content there 2-3 times a week. Also, like I said before, this session will be recorded and we post it on our YouTube channel. We only have 388 subscribers, you guys, and in my opinion, this is the YouTube channel with some of the best content on there. Almost as good as Chanie's, and not as good as her podcast, which I think you should all subscribe to. But yes, please come here and subscribe and pound that like button, or smash that like button when you watch these, because it helps the YouTube algorithm. And then our Facebook page, KT Childcare Connect. This is a place where we do digital storytelling, where our partners like Chanie and Evelyn Knight and Holly Alyssa Bruno, they will come and do content here. Chanie and I also have 2 times a month a Facebook Live show that we do together. Again, this is where you'll hear me say crazy stuff to her. But yes, please join KT Childcare Connect. So with all that housekeeping done, I've burned 5 full minutes of wonderful content and gotten in the way of one of the best presenters I've ever known. Chanie Wilschanski, she's an early childhood leadership coach. She's also the CEO of School of Excellence. She offers leadership program designed to help childhood directors build a school of excellence, a collaborative culture, and create an environment that fosters growth of teachers as leaders. And Chanie, we've been doing a ton of chatter and banter about leadership. Today's session is about resilience. Welcome. I'm going to get out of your way. I won't trip you up. I'm super excited. It's all yours. Let me unshare.
Hi, everyone. I'm really grateful to be here today. Thanks, Scott, for such an amazing intro. I want to start off with a deep breath for all the owners, directors, and leaders that are on here today, to just take in a deep breath to kind of clear everything that's in your mind, every challenge that you already had to engage with this morning, every misstep that's going on, every kind of emotional baggage that you're holding, and just breathe it all out also. When we think of building a resilient team that focuses on culture, we need to understand some of the inner workings of what's happening, both from a global economy perspective, from just what's happening in the world at large, and how that truly has impact on our centers, on the quality of education, and on the quality of the relationships that we have with our staff. When we understand how those things really interlink, it becomes a little bit smoother for us to be able to ask the right questions so that we're solving the right problems. I find that the greatest leadership skill that I continue to develop as a leader is asking better questions. The quality of our questions directly impacts the quality of our life, the quality of our culture, the quality of our relationships. And so when we ask better questions, we get better answers and we get better solutions. The other question is understanding the problem that you're trying to solve. Are you solving a resiliency problem? Are you solving a culture problem? Are you solving an emotional intelligence problem? Are you solving a gossip problem? Truly having an awareness of the problem that you're trying to solve ensures that you are pursuing the right strategy, the right training, the right support. And so today's training, while the topic is building a resilient team by focusing on culture, what you will find throughout this training is I'm going to challenge the way that you're thinking about culture and resiliency on the team. I'm going to challenge the current way that you approach culture and leadership and inter-team dynamics, because we get stuck in a rut. We get stuck in our patterns and our behaviors. And that's the purpose of coming to these trainings, of coming to these webinars that Kangarootime offers, listening to podcasts. The goal is not just to consume the content. The goal is to listen to content that disrupts the way that you're thinking. We don't want to live in echo chambers of people who think and believe and have the same perspectives of the world as we do, because then we just continue to regurgitate the same information. It's one of the reasons why I love connecting with Scott, because I continue to get a different perspective on how he sees quality education. Simply from having a conversation with someone who's a decade older than me, he's looking at the world differently. It doesn't matter his position or whatever it is. He's been in the world 10 years longer than I have. So his experiences in life are going to be different, which means the way he responds to questions will be different the way that I respond to questions. And that enriches relationships. What happens many times with staff is they view a different perspective. or a different lens in the world, or a different belief system, or a different way of quality care as a threat to their existence and identity. And the flip needs to be on how we embrace looking at things from a different perspective. So I'm curious, I don't know if the chat box is actually open in a webinar format, but if it is, I would love to hear from the attendees who are live with us now. And if you're catching the replay, I know that the recordings are posted on YouTube and also on Facebook. You can chat in the comments there as well. When you think of a resilient team, when you think of what it means to be a resilient teacher, what are some of the qualities? What are some of the actions that you will see teachers demonstrating where you're like, yep, that's a resilient teacher. That's an emotionally intelligent human being. That is someone who's confident. What are the signals that you're noticing that tell you that story? So sorry, Marissa, just from a tech perspective, can I see the comments if people are posting here?
Yep, you'll be able to see them in the chat.
Okay. So self-reflection. Okay, thank you, Nancy. Nice to see you here. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Yeah. So what we're seeing here from a global perspective is the great adaptation of needing to consistently self-adapt and self-reflect, because we're not in what we call a typical trauma response. We are in an ongoing trauma response in a trauma-induced world. And it is very much ongoing, and it is very much prevalent no matter where you are, where we're continuing to feel the sense of fear and uncertainty and ambiguity. And it's not going away. And there's a lot of exhaustion and fatigue, specifically around decision-making fatigue. Our thresholds are a lot lower. And so what we're noticing is we want the leaders to give grace to the staff. I'm noticing a lot of conversation from leadership on be kind to your team. This is a difficult season. Give grace, give more time off. Be grateful to the people that did show up. There's so many people that are not showing up. There's a lot of conversation on lower your expectation. And so there's a very big dialogue with leaders around what they should be doing with the staffing crisis, which is, again, on a global level. This isn't just in early childhood. We're seeing short staffing everywhere, right? There's flight delays consistently because of short staffing. You'll have to wait sometimes 45 minutes till your luggage come off the conveyor belt because of short staffing. In a restaurant, there's short staffing. This isn't just in early childhood. Service and quality of experience and service is down in the dumps because there aren't people to serve the industry. And we're taking it so far that the expectation has become that the leader should give everything to the employee, that everything should come from you. Because be grateful, these are the staff that did show up, right? Make sure you give them everything and don't have any expectation or hold them accountable, because they'll run away and then you'll have no one. And so leaders are operating in a sense of tremendous fear of losing the people that they have. So just give me a yes in the comments if you feel that high sense of emotion, that heightened sense of fear, that sense of dread of like, oh, I need to have a difficult conversation with someone about something that they said to a parent or something that they did that wasn't okay, but I fear the repercussions. Yeah, thank you, Carrie. This is a very normal response. Saying yes means you're very cognizantly aware of your emotions and how you're feeling currently. What happens when we continue to feed into this is we create the pattern and the cycle. And so the cycle becomes that everything is expected of the leader and very little is expected from the employee. And Scott and I just spoke about this last week on our show, where we spoke about work ethic and we spoke about entitlement and what does it mean to create a culture of accountability. The layer that we want to really be looking at when we're building resilient teams by focusing on culture is, how does your team define giving grace? Because resilience means the ability to bounce back from a setback, from a failure, or from something just not going your way. Welcome to the world of childcare. There's always going to be something that doesn't go your way, because little Sam doesn't know that you had a hard morning and he isn't emotionally regulated enough to know not to throw that block or not to bite his friend. And so those things are going to happen all the time in your classroom and in your center. And so when I hear things like, this is a hard season, or I'm going to come back to this or solve this when this calms down, we have created an excuses culture. We have created a culture where we let people do things because it's hard. When a 10-year-old comes home from school and had a hard afternoon and then comes in and his mind isn't regulated enough, so maybe he smacks his brother because his brother was in the way, or he says something disrespectful to his parents, or he does this, or he barks. It's all the emotional response to something that happened at school that day. The question is it tolerated? Or is it a conversation that we have where we work on that, right? I understand you had a hard day. It's still not okay to hit your brother. I understand that things are really challenging at school and I want to talk to you about it. This is still not okay. And so what's happened is that we continue to give excuses because things are hard, right? Oh, he had a tantrum because he was tired. Oh, he had a tantrum because he didn't have lunch. And now let's just bring it up to grown-ups. Oh, she was playing passive aggressive behavior because she skipped her break, or because of this, or because of that. And we give excuses for all the behaviors that are not okay in our center. And we continue to give those excuses until it becomes the baseline, where the baseline is now, it's okay to do this because Carrie will forgive me, or Nancy will give me grace, or Carlene will tell me, it's fine, don't worry, we'll deal with it tomorrow, it's okay. And we get one chance and a second chance and a third chance. And then what ends up happening is there's no accountability. There's no accountability where it's like, you can have the hardest day ever and you still can never do this. And so the baseline has shifted. Our baseline, for many people who are on here, is a higher baseline of emotional intelligence and regulation, where when something goes wrong, one time I remember when I was a director, this is many years ago, at least 8 years ago, and I was having a conversation with one of the teachers, and she was like, you're always so positive in these conversations. It must be so nice not to have, all these challenges. And I had to really breathe and pause and say, just because I'm happy, it doesn't mean I don't have my own shit going on. Just because I'm showing up positively, it doesn't mean that I don't have challenges in my life. Being happy is not contingent on my life being perfect. No one has a perfect life. I have my own challenges. I have things that I'm dealing with, but that's not yours to carry. We're in a conversation now. It's not your job to carry my emotions. That's not leadership. That's not boundaries. That's emotional dysregulation. And so what's happening is there's an expectation on the leaders to have that level of emotional regulation, but there's very little expectation on the employee not to lash out or not call in or, show up late, or there's excuses left, right, and center. And there isn't a baseline of, it doesn't matter how you're feeling. these things still need to happen. We can have a dialogue, we can have a conversation, but I can't be met with consistent excuses of why it isn't happening. So let me pause here for a moment. Again, sometimes these thoughts like really disrupt our thinking and kind of they come like this gut punch of like, whew, do I have an excuses culture? Do I have a culture where I don't hold people accountable? So check in with yourself for a moment and ask yourself, are you tolerating a lot of behavior that if you felt like you had a choice, you wouldn't be tolerating it? Again, this is an open dialogue conversation. I'm a presenter, but I'm very much need to engage with my audience to know what's going on, so that we consistently adapt the quality of the content that I've prepared to make sure that it's valuable for you guys. So how are you guys feeling when it comes to excuses culture versus culture of accountability? Where do you feel you are right now? Yeah, Larissa, ouch. Yep, definitely tolerating more than I used to. Okay. And what's so beautiful about this moment, Larissa, is you're acknowledging that there's a problem, right? The first step is the acknowledgement. It's recognizing there is a problem here. I am tolerating more than I used to. And I don't want to do that anymore. Culture of excuses. The dog ate my homework. Yeah. Melissa, I found myself asking myself if I'm being too lenient. Yeah. Usually when we're asking ourselves that question, it's because there's a little bit of truth to that, right? There's a little bit of like, ooh, like I am being lenient. So we've addressed that there is a problem, there is a challenge. There might be a high level of culture of excuses versus culture of accountability. And yet we're in this double-edged sword, because to hold people accountable, they need to be resilient. They need to have a high level of emotional intelligence. They need to be confident in themselves. And here's why. When I go to a team member of mine and I say, hey, we need to have a conversation about your performance in this particular area, and I want to talk to you about X, Y, and Z, right? And so we have the conversation. The next day, there's no hard feelings. There's no like, oh my God, my boss hates me, I'm going to be fired. There's, okay, I made a mistake. I'm being held accountable. I'm going to do better. But Chanie loves me. She cares about me. She's created a great environment. My confidence doesn't need to take a beating because I did one thing wrong. And what's happening with centers and with staff, especially if you have staff that are under 26 years old, if you have a majority of staff that are young, the brain isn't fully developed until you're 26. The executive functioning part, the prefrontal cortex, all those things that are responsible for executive functioning, for emotional intelligence, for regulation, for emotional processing, for mental well-being, that isn't fully developed until you're 26. And so if you have a lot of young staff, you're going to have a lot of weak-minded staff. By weak-minded, it means any ounce of feedback crushes them, literally and figuratively crushes them. They are like, oh my gosh, I am not a perfect human being. Now I'm sad. It crushes them. And so I hear from leaders a lot of times, they'll say things, but my teachers always ask me, give me feedback, give me feedback. I'm like, no. Your teachers are telling you, give me reassurance, tell me I'm doing a good job, give me a hurrah, give me a pat on the back, clap my hands for me, give me a raise, give me a promotion, give me a bonus, give me a paid time off, give me an extra salary. They're not saying give me feedback. Give me feedback comes from an emotionally intelligent human that comes forward and says, I want to do a good job. Tell me where I'm falling short. Okay, let's pause again, because I did another kind of brain disruptor, I'm going to call them. Feedback versus reassurance, very different. I once had a team member who used to tell me all the time, give me feedback. I want to know where, I'm not doing well. And I would give feedback. And then the ripple effect would be 2 weeks of lackluster performance because she would be so hurt by the feedback that I would give her. And eventually I had to exit her out of the company because I'm like, I can't do this. I can't have an employee that I have to constantly reassure and coax and corral and take care of who doesn't have a high level of emotional intelligence, that I'm not beating you up when I give you one piece of feedback. That's the culture I'm building, right? It's very different than the culture that I had when I was a director 10 years ago or whatever it is, right? But the first step is recognizing, what is the baseline? What is the emotional regulation that I need my staff to have to be resilient, to build this incredible culture that I want? If you think about in early childhood, since, majority of all of us are in early childhood, when a 13-month-old bites, right? Let's say there's, a couple of children in a classroom, grabs the toy, and the 13-month-old's response is he bites the child. There isn't alarm bells ringing. It's, okay, we got to deal with this. We got to message both parents. We have to put ice. We have to wash it. But there isn't this like, oh my gosh, can you believe it? He bit this person. Yeah, I could believe it. He's 13 months. That's a very normal response. But when a 10-year-old has someone grab a toy from him and the 10-year-old's response is to bite the child, now we're having a different conversation, because a 10-year-old should have the emotional regulation and the mental awareness to say, give that back to me, that's mine. Or don't grab, ask me if you want to turn, because they have language, they have words. They can create a coherent sentence to communicate their needs. A 13-month-old doesn't. And what's happening in the centers is we are treating our staff like 13-month-olds. That they lack the ability to communicate their needs. They lack the ability and the emotional regulation to say, this is hard for me. I need help working through this. Or I need to have a conversation with my co-teacher that she keeps coming 5 minutes late after the break. Can you help me have that conversation with her? As opposed to coming to you and saying, Colleen, oh my gosh, like Samantha keeps coming late, like you need to talk to her. No. Colleen doesn't need to talk to her. You need to talk to her. You're a grown-up. You need to go talk to your friend and tell her, I don't like when you come 5 minutes late from the break. Here's how it disrupts the classroom management and culture of our classroom. And it makes me feel resentful to you because I work hard to come back and respect your time. Ugh. So uncomfortable. No one wants to have that conversation. So let's make Colleen, the director, have that conversation. Let her do all of the messy work. I don't need to do it. I'm clean from having any difficult conversation. There's a very all or nothing approach. It's if there's conflict, there should be divorce. I wrote an email a couple of years back, and it was titled Dinner and Divorce. And I think it was my most read email. And I wrote this whole thing about conflict and how when you're in conflict with your spouse, significant other, whatever it is, conflict doesn't mean divorce. Conflict is, hey, we're seeing differently over here. Like we need to have a conversation about this. We need to come aligned, or we need to come to agreement where we agree to disagree on this. Or is this, a mismatch of values in this moment? Like what's going on here, right? Conflict doesn't mean breakup. Conflict doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Conflict doesn't mean that something's wrong. Conflict means there's conflict. And now you need to be mature enough to have a conversation. Okay, so let's pause on my brain buster, brain disruptor, and let me hear from you guys in the comments. What are you hearing from what I'm sharing here? What's going through your mind? What are you feeling about your center? Let me take a little pulse check here, and then we'll move on. And it's okay to give yourself a minute to think about it before you write something, right? It's okay to give yourself permission to think, as opposed to having the barrage of information or needing to answer in that moment, right? It's that instant gratification piece. Sometimes our staff come to us and they think we're a human answering machine, right? Like, here's my question, Melissa, what's the answer? Well, Melissa's brain wants a few moments to think about that, and Melissa will get back to you. It's the permission to think. Okay, Melissa, I need to allow myself the grace. Saying no to someone else means I'm saying yes to me. Oh, yes. I love that, Melissa. Carlene, I think I'm allowing myself to be the problem solver. Yes. Let's talk about that for a moment. I did a poll in my group yesterday. So I've a directors group and an owners group. We have a directors inner circle and an owners HQ group. And I posted a question and asked them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how addicted to chaos are you? You'd be surprised in the responses on how addicted to chaos many leaders are. Many of us became leaders as a result of showing tremendous problem-solving skills and stamina in moments of crisis. We have become the proverbial wartime school leaders. We're very good at managing chaos. We're very good at managing crisis. We are sitting at the end of at the tail end of a COVID pandemic, and you're still standing. So you're very good at navigating uncertainty. And what happens is just like any addiction, it creates a dopamine rush. You solved a problem. Cha-ching, it's a dopamine rush. I did something. And we become addicted to the chaos. And just like any problem, when you recognize, I am addicted to chaos, I'm addicted to crisis, I'm addicted to solving problems. And what if I asked a different question? What would my day look like if I wasn't putting out fires all the time? Do you know many leaders have no idea how to answer that question? What would my day be full with? What would I do every day if I wasn't putting out fires? What would I do every day if I wasn't managing staffing scheduling because all the staff showed up? What would my day be full with? Our brains don't know what calm even looks like, or what a collaborative culture looks like, or what a culture of calm looks like, because we are so used to the chaos. And especially after 2 years of prolonged chaos and uncertainty, we are definitely addicted to some extent. And I think that's why those questions around how do we build a resilient team, I think first we have to break up with chaos. Like, actually break up with it. Like, you're not my friend anymore. I'm breaking up with you. I'm going to fall in love with being calm. I'm going to have a relationship with empathy and kindness and grace, not with firefighting and chaos and all the craziness that's on that side. That doesn't mean that that doesn't happen. It just means your focus becomes here on the beautiful relationship that you can create with calm, with a beautiful culture. Okay, Larissa, I need to work on my own self-regulation right now. I'm getting frustrated at staff instead of just dealing with things directly. Seems like everything is extra hard right now. Of course, everything is extra hard right now because you don't have any margin for thinking. Every waking moment is about putting out a problem and solving a fire. Every waking moment, there is no white space to think, to process, to have a moment to say, what do I want? Forget about what everyone else wants. What do I want? What do I want for this center? What do I want for the legacy that I'm creating in this company? What do I want from a profitability standpoint? What do I want? Not what does everyone else want? And especially women have the hardest time answering this question. We have been programmed since we're little kids to always think about, what does everyone else need? What does everyone need from me? Where can I show up in service? How do I help? And it's really uncomfortable to say, what do I want? What does Amy want from her day, from her life, from her marriage, from her parenting, from her financials, from her health, from her wellness, from her mental well-being? What does she want? And then being unapologetic about designing a culture like that. We feel that we can only give to others, but taking for ourselves is selfish. What happens is when we don't take that time to think through that, we become dysregulated. And when we're not emotionally regulated, we create that environment, right? Our thoughts create our environment. Our actions create our environment. And so if we want a culture of resilient staff, how are we regulating ourselves? How are we responding to chaos? Are we creating a culture of excuses versus accountability? These are really hard questions to ask because they're not one-word answers. And this is why we rarely ask these questions. It's much easier to answer, where are the glue sticks? In the cabinet. Where's the toilet paper? In the basement. Where's this? Over there. Where are the Band-Aids? It's very easy. They're one-word answers. And every time you answer one of those questions, it's a dopamine hit. Boom, I solved a problem. Boom, I answered a question. Boom, I did this. And you become addicted. So many times people are like, I can't close my door. I can't not have interruptions. No, you're addicted to the interruptions because they make you feel valuable. They make you feel needed. So you become addicted to that because that's where you find self-satisfaction and fulfillment. You're solving problems. As opposed to saying, I'm not solving the problems where the glue sticks are because you're 28 years old and you have eyeballs and feet and arms and you can make your way around the building and find the glue sticks. And your desire for that task to take 2 minutes less because you want to ask me where it is so that you don't have to go look is not a need that I need to fulfill. I don't need to fulfill your laziness of looking because you can come to me and I'll tell you where it is. Look yourself. We are handicapping our people and robbing their ability to use their brain. And what's happening is the leader is the brain of all the staff, of all the administration. The owner is the leader of all the brain of all the directors. That is not a high-performing team. That is not a culture of excellence. That is a culture of dependability. That is a culture of entitlement. That is a culture of excuses. A culture of accountability, where you have resilient staff and you have a high-performing team, is where everyone is using their brain. And everyone is not picking off the leader's brain to solve problems. Because what happens is every time you give your brain towards that, you actually remove brain space to solve problems and to come up with creative strategies to continue the growth of the center. I had a conversation with an owner a few weeks ago, and she's like, she runs, I think, 6 centers, maybe 7. And she said, the staff, the directors came to her and they're like, what's next? Like, what's the next thing that we're focusing on? What's going on? And she's like, I didn't have an answer for them because I've been so busy in the day-to-day. I didn't have time to sit down and think about what's next. Just like in a classroom, The teacher doesn't come the same time as the kids. Teacher comes a few minutes earlier to set up, to greet the kids. If you're doing a retreat for your staff, you don't show up in the van with your staff. You come in advance and set up the place for your staff. Because when the staff get there, they're looking to the leader to say, here's the agenda. The kids come into the classroom, they're looking for direction from the teacher. Here's the schedule of the day. If you're a leader and you're charting the course for what's next for your company and for your center, you can't chart the course at the same time while your teachers are right there with you. You need the time to think. You need the time to dream big. You need the time to have these conversations. And you can't do that while you're covering a shift for nap time. That's not thinking time. You can't do that while your door is being pounded down because someone needs toilet paper. We need to let go of the guilt of not having so many items on our to-do list. As an owner, you can have one thing on your list for the day, but that takes 8 hours. That's the whole day. We have to separate from the doing to the thinking, to the designing, to the creating, to the innovating. And stop worrying about doing all the things. And think about what am I building next? What do my staff need right now? What is the training that they need? They need confidence and resilience. I need to teach them these skills. Confidence and resilience are skills that are learnable and teachable and measurable. Emotional intelligence is a skill. A child at 1 year old doesn't have it. A child at 10 years old starts to develop it a little bit more. A grown-up at 20 has more. A grown-up at 40 has more. It's a skill that comes with practice and experiences. And part of those experiences is understanding the human fallacy. You're going to make mistakes, going to fall hard on your face. And remember to own up to it and be accountable to it. Because people are good. They want to help you. But if you keep deflecting what you're doing or not taking responsibility, that breaks the trust cycle, and I don't want to help you. I told this to a teacher once who kept deflecting and finding excuses why something didn't happen. It was always someone else's fault or this or that. And I finally told her one time, it was like this blunt moment where I'm like, when are you going to take responsibility for your own life? When are you going to stop saying it's the government's fault, it's the economy's fault, it's this one's fault, it's the weather, it's my boyfriend? When are you going to say, I made a mistake. I need to take responsibility. I'm going to figure out how to solve this. When are those words going to come out of your mouth? Because until now, it's everyone else's problem why you're not succeeding in life. And you're 25. It's no one's responsibility why you're not succeeding. You are responsible for yourself, and you need to be a grown-up. And grown-ups take personal responsibility, and they stop blaming everyone else for their misgivings. She didn't like it. Granted, it's not fun to hear that from your boss. And she cried, and I gave her a big hug, and I said, it's really hard to be a grown-up. It really is. It sucks a lot of the time. Trust me, I don't like being a grown-up either a lot. But it's also really rewarding. And I'm telling you something right now that you're going to be so grateful to hear. Because the moment you take personal responsibility and you become an advocate for your life turns around. Your life does not change because circumstances around you changed. You create your circumstances. You create your life. We had a really hard time in New York during the pandemic. I could have blamed everyone. Mayor de Blasio, Governor Cuomo, the government, the president, the this, the that. Why am I stuck in New York? Why am I bound here? This is ridiculous. Why are the parks closed? This is insane. I have nowhere to take my kids. I could have complained all day long. But instead I said, no, I don't want this life. I don't want to be trapped here. We are going to move. We are getting up and we are moving because I am an advocate for my life. I am an agent of change for my own life. And I'm not waiting for any government to tell me what I can and cannot do. I am responsible for my life, nobody else. That type of radical responsibility is what you want from your staff. You want them to stop abdicating responsibility to you. So give me a yes in the comments. Let me hear just what you guys are feeling right now. You're resonating with it. And then what is the next invitation for you to either think about, an action step you want to take? Let me hear some of the things you guys are thinking, and then I'm going to open up the floor for some Q&A in a few moments. And Scott, feel free to mention something or just add on to anything over here. This is a very open conversation. It's not just the Chanie show here. I'm here to serve and support everyone who's on here. Hi, Denise. I see so many people here that I know. These are hard questions. These are hard things to think about. It's heavy. It's different. It's not a quick tip. Oh, go give everyone a Starbucks gift card and then they're all going to come on time. No, they won't. All right, how are we feeling? What are some of the next steps? What are you guys thinking? Tell me what's going through your mind. Writing it down helps you verbally process what you're feeling inside. That's why I ask for engagement. I don't want you to be a passive listener of the conversation. I want you to be an active engager in the conversation. That's how you cement the learning and it becomes part of the vernacular in your brain, right? Where when something comes up, you will hear my voice and be like, 1 second, am I doing culture of excuses right now? Like, that's what I want you to walk away from here. I want you to be able to hold that in your head. And the way that you do that is by closing the loop. Okay. Carrie, what are some of your suggestions to getting staff to arrive on time? Some are consistently a few minutes late every day. Yeah, Carrie, I actually have an amazing podcast episode on that. It's episode 3 on the Schools of Excellence podcast. It's called the Gratitude Matrix. It's a very simple system that all of our clients implement. And as you implement that more and more consistently, you will see call outs decrease, you will see retention increase, you will see gossip go down, you will see sarcasm pretty much eradicated from the culture. So it's my #1 metric for culture and retention. So you could go check it out. It's episode 3 on the Schools of Excellence podcast. Great. Awesome. Glad I'm able to help. Yeah, Nancy, your story about talking to staff who blames everyone, everything around reminded me so much of one of my staff. Probably a good idea for me to have a similar conversation with her. No more excuses. Yes. So there's having the conversation, and it is so difficult. And I think it's important to preface that, right? I just had a really difficult conversation with a team member, and I started off by saying, this is really hard for me to do. This is not an easy conversation for me to have with you. I care about you. I love you. I care about our relationship. And I'm going to tell you some hard things, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to possibly be hurt by what I'm saying. And I still need to tell you this. But I want you to know that this is hard for me also. So, as much as it's hard on the receiving end to hear this, it's also hard for me to say this because I care about you and because we have a relationship. I think it's important for the staff to understand that just because you're the leader or the boss, it doesn't mean it's easy to give them feedback. It doesn't mean it's easy to hold them accountable. It is so hard, and we still need to do it. So hard. For those of you that are looking for strategies on difficult conversations, we have a series on the podcast called Difficult Conversations. It's a 4-part series, and we have strategies and scripts and templates to help you prep for difficult conversations that you need to have with both teachers and parents. So feel free to go check out all of that. Again, it's all free and available for you on our podcast. The reason I don't like to go into tactical stuff so much on the webinar is because I want to spend this time giving high level strategy, because that's the part that we can't find on Google. But the tips and the tricks and the hacks are, always available on my podcast, on YouTube, and just you can find those stuff for free. It's the quality of questioning and decision making, which is what the leaders really should be seeking, not the tips and the tricks and the hacks, right? That comes second. First, you have to know what you're looking for a tip for. Any other questions or thoughts or things like that? We actually have a special training. I've spoken about this on my lives with Scott, and I'm going to share it with you guys here. And I'll have Marissa send it out in the follow-up email. We have a training called the Confidence and Resiliency Training. It's a unique training specifically for your staff. We created it for you to show to your staff at your next staff meeting. And it actually comes with a presenter's guide where we walk you through how to do this training with your staff. We have questions, we have a facilitator's guide. So it's a very powerful training. If you're looking to up level your staff's resiliency skills, your staff's confidence skills, their ability, to be emotionally intelligent and regulate themselves, this is a very powerful training to use for professional development for your team. So we'll share those resources as well. All right. Marissa or Scott, do we have any questions or anything here? Because I'd love to dig into that if there's anything that's there. I'm going to put in the comments the link to the training.
Hey, Chanie, one of the things you mentioned had to do with a term I learned years back, crisis junkie. It's interesting how you describe that concept of being addicted to the dopamine of having to be, the savior or having to fix issues. I think founders, leaders, CEOs, directors need to be in a place of self-regulation and knowing when, knowing their threshold for drama and doing everything they can to circumvent that and not have it exist at all. Just really, things do happen, but you want to be like Tom Brady back there, just calm and with all the chaos.
Yes, it's training for like an athlete does, right? It's understanding. I'm putting on an event in March, and I've already started to physically train for this event, because when you look at a 5,000 square foot room, I'm going to be walking 5 miles in the course of each day, just from working the room and navigating. So in the course of 2 days, I'm going to walk 10 miles in heels, a dress, and a mic. I need to prepare for that. I don't walk 5 miles a day in heels and a mic. So if I don't want to collapse on the day of my event, which I did in 2019, because I didn't physically train for my event, I have to train. You need to train for your job. Every day will be crisis. Every day there's going to be difficult conversations. Every day there's going to be things that you're navigating. How are you training for that? so that you always have this level of equanimity, this level of homeostasis of like, this is my baseline. I never go under
Yeah.
this, right? It's
Yeah.
it's
It's
such
like,
a mental preparedness.
there's, in one of Gladwell's books, I think it's Outliers, he talks about 10,000 hours
Yes,
and
yes.
how proficiency comes with time. And in my first, it was cute. In my first like real sales job, my wife, I used to demo for her, and I would demo and demo and demo, and she would say, "Do it again, do it again." But again, just there was a lot of preparation, and then I'd get on a sales call and I'd look supernatural, because I had thousands of reps, navigating through the software. And, I became poetry in motion at doing this, but it took a lot of work. It just
Yes, sometimes
getting
at
those reps.
events, yeah, people will see me do a presentation. I'll be like, wow, you're such a natural. It's so amazing how you present. This is thousands upon hours of presenting, of talking, of training, of all of this stuff. This isn't just doesn't come out like this. It's a level of preparedness to be able to talk without notes, to be able to talk without a slide deck, to be able to speak to your heart and to your soul. It's a lot of work, but it's joyful work because this is who I want to be. I want to be that type of presenter. So I'm putting in those hours. And so you're asking, the question is, who is the leader that I want to be? How do I want to show up in my center? And then going and learning those skills, not telling yourself the lie of, well, I wasn't raised in an emotionally regulated household and therefore I can't be emotionally regulated. I wasn't born in an emotionally regulated household either. That doesn't mean that I can't learn those skills.
That's right. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and
Yeah.
people that are kind of revolutionary and great at what they do. It's always the same patterns. I've hired enough people to know. Let's take people that are in sales. Those people have like a regimented way of going about things. The
Sure.
great ones do, and it's that discipline and that preparation that always pays off. And what you're talking about is, earning resilience and building it within yourself. It's nothing that comes natural. No, I mean we're all very flawed by design. We're not built that way for the most part. So
Mhm,
you do
mhm.
have to work at it.
Yeah, my mentor Todd always says, confidence is earned. You have to earn it. You have
Yeah.
to work for it. You have to slave for it. Like you're not just born with confidence. I wasn't born with this level of confidence to present. It's something that you learn so that when you present, you're not stuttering, you're not sweating, you're not shaking, my heart isn't pounding. Like these are all symptoms that a few years ago I was experiencing. Right now, I don't experience that, but it requires so much mental stamina. So, any other quick questions, Scott, that anyone sent in advance or
I think
came in?
everybody's
Good.
pretty squared away. Yeah, I think we're solid.
Okay, so let me just close up here. I want you guys to leave with something that you can hold in your heart and in your mind, where sometimes we hear things like, I have a culture of excuses, or I need to work on my emotional regulation. And it feels very heavy and very unattainable in this specific moment. And so we square it away in our minds of like, I'll deal with that one day. Right now, I still need to do this, or I'll focus on that one day. It's too heavy for me, it's too hard. And so, what I want to invite you to do is, I want you to take one thing from what I shared. Maybe it's, I'm going to mentally prepare myself before the next difficult conversation. I am going to invest in my staff's confidence and resilience. Pick something that you're going to work towards and not push this off to later. This is too important for later. Your legacy, the company's profit, and your quality of life depends on the choices that you make today. So I want to leave you with that. I want to thank you, Scott and Kangarootime, for your time, for the opportunity to present. These are so close and near to my heart, and I so appreciate always the opportunity to be able to share this. So thank you so much for having me.
Honey, we're privileged to have you. You always do such a great job. Thank you. Today's session was amazing, and I want to make sure everybody knows to go and subscribe to your podcast.
Thank you. Yes.
Uh, and then also your YouTube channel and any other media, because your stuff is just so great.
Thank you. Yeah, you could go check out the Schools of Excellence podcast. We're on Google Play, we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're everywhere. You could subscribe and start binging today. Awesome.
That's
Thank
right.
you so much,
Right.
Scott. Thanks.
Thanks,
Take
everybody. Care. Take care. Bye.
Bye.